that we've dealt with the risks of being LGBTQ in the military or the risks of just being in the military. We've covered a wide variety of topics. So go back and take a look. And if you like us, please like us, press like and subscribe. And today we're going to be talking a lot with Mitch about whether we as a country have kept faith with our veterans. I'm a Navy and Army veteran. Mitch played a first sergeant in our movie Love and Country. His father was a command sergeant major. Is that correct?
No, Sergeant Major.
Sergeant major. A command sergeant major is apparently something else.
Yeah, that's staff level stuff.
So Mitch is here, and he's going to talk to us about keeping faith with our veterans when they have protected us. They've gone into harm's way. Many times they've gotten injured, either psychologically or physically. So, what do you think?
Yeah, well, I think that we are seeing every day a little more harm being done to our veterans, and we've moved away from, and actually in our active duty troops as well, we've moved away from the issue of let's get rid of these LGBTQ folks into a general assault on everyone who has helped serve, who has helped bring us through the conflicts that we've entered. Um, just this past week, we had the issue of a shooting in Washington D.C., where an interpreter who had worked with us in Afghanistan, Iraq, uh, apparently shot two National Guard troops, one of whom has died since then. I am I'm going to I'm going to say, but then avoid talking about the theory aspects of that situation. I don't trust it. I don't believe it, and that's really for another show, I guess, if it's for a show at all. But that's exactly the sort of situation you end up with when you tell people you're going to do things for them and then you slowly destroy them instead of looking out for them after they've given you everything.
And you're referring to the promises to Afghan interpreters if they served us in the fraught environment of having the Taliban around and
Yes,
then having the
absolutely.
Taliban take over. We were going to protect them and take care of them and let them come to the United States,
Right.
become
There was,
citizens. We
yes,
promised that.
yeah. And there was no circumstance there under which they were going to be able to continue living in their home country after they finished helping us. If we had completely taken the
Mhm.
country uh, under control, we would still be in the exact same situation of them having to leave because there would always be people in the shadows who want them punished for going against their own country, uh, for being traitors on one level or another. So, again, going to avoid the conspiracy theories, and I want to start by talking about Trump's inauguration speech, January 20th of this year. Just a fast quote here. He starts out saying, or during portion of the speech, he says, "Influential institutions, including the federal government, have adopted and actively use dangerous, demeaning, and immoral race and sex based preferences under the guise of so called diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility that can violate the civil rights laws of this nation." Where those
Interesting
things
that
are,
he calls this immoral, isn't it? Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely, because those things are 100% designed to support every institution in this country and the people who have helped build those institutions and this country. Right out of the gate, he has started. He is constantly talking about issues of Islam and Muslims here in the United States. Uh, I think it is just worth noting that we have a chaplains division is the wrong word there, but we have chaplains in the United States military whose job it is to serve everyone of every religion. We have chaplains who are Protestant, Catholic, Baptists, Jews, Mormons, Muslims, Hindus, Baptists, Sikhs, Eastern Orthodox, every and across the breadth of uh, Christian sects. And we have over 200 different faiths and ideologies represented by our troops alone. Our chaplains division looks to all of their needs, regardless of their own particular faith. They look to the needs of everyone who serves in our military. The situation we're looking at right now is we have Secretary of Defense Hegseth, who is promoting a very conservative, fundamentalist, uh, Christian Crusades attitude towards everyone outside the country and inside the country. And he's holding that same sort of sword above the heads of our military. He's got that tattoo on his chest, the one that says Deus Volt, which is a Latin term for God wills it, which is a uh, sort of a marching phrase for 11th century crusaders. So he's immediately putting himself just in an attack position against against our Islamic troops, and because he's taking such a hard-lined uh, attitude, again that fundamentalist Christian attitude, in the end he is eventually going to be putting himself in a on a collision course with every other group of soldiers that is not effectively
Yes.
Jewish or sort of mainstream fundamentalist Christian. Uh, the chaplains corps will end up being gutted because they will throw out everybody who represents something that is not mainstream Christian, and they are going to start forcing our soldiers to toe that same line if they want to remain in the U.S. military.
So
That would be a loss of roughly 30% of our active duty troops. There's always a possibility people are going to come in and just claim no
yeah.
particular religion at all.
But what is the promise we make to someone when they enlist in the military and put their life on the line? What do we promise them um, for their spiritual needs? What is the promise? And I think what you said is the structure of the chaplains corps. That's basic spiritual um, support is not one religion. It's hundreds of religions.
Yes.
So
To include atheists, they are on that
include
list.
it. So, and if you watch some of the documentary footage of our latest wars, you'll see that chaplains increasingly are just basic emotional support for soldiers. They're
Yes.
just there for them. So Hegseth's really talking about if he's going to be a Christian nationalist or I've heard of Catholic nationalism is the theology behind a lot of this. Very far right, conservative, fundamentalist, um, Catholic nationalism. Then we're breaking our word to the troops here that they're going to be supported. And what percentage do you think of the troops are not Christian nationalists? There's
Well, no. So the number shows as being 30% that aren't Christian, and as far as not Christian nationalists, I'd say 2/3 of that remaining 70%. I'm sure it is pretty.
yeah.
It pretty well matches the makeup of the United States, and about a third of the United States falls into that fundamentalist category. So, it puts us in a position to lose well over half of our troops, or have well over half of our troops feeling alienated or having to lie about their belief systems in order to serve. And then and again, he is actively attacking Islamic belief systems. So we are in a position to lose anyone who calls himself a Sikh or a Sunni or a Muslim of any kind. He is going directly after them. And and as you know, you've served, and I've served. I haven't served, but I've lived on bases around the world, and you know how we have that tendency to vilify the group that we are directly going up against. When it was the Germans, they were Jerry's and Heine's, and when it was the Japanese, they were, everybody in the Asian atmosphere somewhere is a Jap or a Gook or a Zipperhead. There, we humanize in order to allow ourselves into that combat. And in the same way that when black soldiers entered the military and had to
Mhm.
find their place and be recognized as brothers in arms, we are creating a situation where we're saying, well, no, 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 don't worry about them being your brothers in arms. They're outsiders. They're not like us. They're not even supposed to be here. It was a mistake to let them in. We're going to be staring down the barrel of that issue, and it's going to happen very quickly with someone like Hegseth in charge. They're already saying that, oh no, we're going to treat what is normally considered to be hate speech and symbols of hate in a completely different way. We're not just going to assume right off the bat that they're a problem, but we'll deal with them. Okay, so you're allowed to put up your noose and your Confederate flag, and the troops that's going to be a problem for will just be told, oh, he doesn't mean it that way. That's not
Mhm.
he's not doing anything. He's allowed to believe what he believes. He's not harming you with his belief system. And because of that, those troops will find themselves segregated. And you can only hope that the person who puts that flag up is the one who is actually segregated. But they'll find a way to punish everyone who's pushing that person off to the side in favor of their black brothers in arms, in favor of their Sikh brothers in arms. And at this point in the game, it's impossible to know what will happen, since the administrative support is there, even if the line troops don't necessarily believe it.
Well, I think above all, we'll have confusion, and the will allow racism and xenophobia and all those issues to all rise again
Yes.
and
Yeah.
be perfectly acceptable, and which there's a long history in the United States of doing that, and a long history in the military of doing that, of allowing these problems to fester and get worse. And now
Yeah.
we're going to have that mightily supported now by
Yeah.
Trump and Hegseth.
Right. And
And
that's
is
already
that really
happening.
where Americans want to go? Is this really what Americans want? I mean, we're really going to have to choose between Christian nationalism and all the hatred of Muslim folks, of black folks, of gay and lesbian folks. We're going to have to really choose between that. You just can't, you don't have both. It doesn't work out. There's
Right.
going to be,
Right. And you don't have to look far right now to see that it's already happening. The amount of the volume of attacks against Muslim Americans, against Islam as a religion, are spreading every day. The conservatives in my feeds are absolutely, and actually, oddly, not even just conservatives, people who I would actually have thought of as being uh, very open to live and let live, and let's just all mind our business. That sort of libertarian attitude. A lot of those people are sliding happily into the outfit that says uh, Muslims are evil. They will not allow, Sharia law is coming to the United States. That old saw is coming back. Uh, it is a bad situation, and this is Trump's America. This is the MAGA agenda. Uh, Sadly, I have never sat down and tried to dig my way through the hundreds of pages of the 2025 agenda. Um, so I don't know, where fomenting hate against Muslims or Jews or anybody else falls into that category, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Well, it works with authoritarianism. If it's a basically authoritarian personality, which Trump is, and which I seems to be Vance is, and seems to be Hegseth also. I mean, I'm not as certain about those, but Catholic Christian nationalism, I say Catholic just because I've been reading about it lately, but if Christian nationalism has basically an authoritative position and fits perfectly with authoritarians, because you get identified with God and you're able to do anything you want to people, and you need these groups that are not like us to persecute. It also in American democracy, it takes the focus off of your authoritarian actions, such as sending troops into cities that don't need them, handcuffing American citizens and deporting them, brutalizing people who just are trying to come to our country, whether it's legal or not. They are peacefully coming, most 99% of them. Gay and lesbian folks are not really threatening you any, but these are easy scapegoats for authoritarians. And
Yes.
it's sort of like the Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the curtain. He's going, "Don't look at me." That's what Trump said. "Don't look at me. Look at them." You notice every time he gets in the shit, he's pointing to somebody else. You say, "Oh, look at they're doing it." So you can always count on whatever Trump is accusing you of is probably what he's doing or going to do,
Yes.
So, but then and the thing is, we've got. I was wondering about the percentages. I mean, how many of quotes minority groups are in the military? There's literally hundreds of them, and pretty soon that's the majority. I mean, that's where we're headed in California. We're going to have a majority Hispanic culture mixed with old European culture and stuff. But anyway, so Americans are going to have a choice. That's what we're coming to, and we're choosing it. We have a choice how they want their military to be. Do they want a military? There's that good question. Do they want one where everybody serves? We better keep faith, or we may not have them. We'll go on. You were going to tell us more,
Right. And on that front, Gino, just sort of to touch on that for just a moment, we're already going through this situation where we're alternately sort of lowering the standards for who's going to serve, while trying to make it sound like we are expanding and we're being pickier about who we bring in. But for the most part, what we're clearly looking for are jugheads, rocks, trigger pullers that will go into the field, do exactly as they're told without questioning it. We are accepting people with lower scores, and we are rapidly pushing out people who understand what those standards were in the first place. So from there, the fact that we are rapidly pushing out women from our military service. It was Hegseth said back in February. Actually, no, it wasn't in February. It was in September. The speech he did in September, when he had all the generals come in from around the country. And he said in that speech that he wanted the U.S. military to function to the highest male standard. And I think we touched on this in our last episode, or potentially the one before. That just that statement tells you we are attempting to push women out of the military. The highest male standard isn't, we understand you have more to offer than your body. You have your education, your knowledge, your experience, your abilities, and we're training you to use those things at their absolute peak to aid our military. But apparently, if you're a woman, not so much. Hegseth has even said at one point he had made a comment about how women bring people into the world, they mother them. The military doesn't need mothers. And that's not a direct quote, but that's what it amounted to. So like, and okay, so we go back in February of this year, 2025, the Army and the Navy took down their web pages that specifically spoke to what women's accomplishments were. They removed references to many of our early female aviators, to our special forces troops who are female. The entire Women's Air Force Service pilot system, the WASP system that came about during World War II, there was literally a website for them that has been removed. It was renamed and put back up with no information. It doesn't link to anything anymore. The webpage for the U.S. Army Women's Museum at Fort Gregg Adams has been taken down. And at this point, to the best of my knowledge, the national, like it was a directive that went through the military that anything that speaks to ethnic roles, political roles, equality roles was to be removed. As it is right now, Hegseth has already said that the United States military is not going to celebrate LGBTQ holidays, Black History Month, Women's Month. He's just cutting all of that stuff out, according to him. At this point, the National Park Service, the National Archive, the Smithsonian, and the Library of Congress are the only people who have not removed their pages that speak directly to the achievements of women in the United States military.
Well, after all, there were only 320,000 women that served in World War II. 320,000. Amazing.
Yes, and we have, and I'm trying to remember, there was a big ceremony, and I wish I should have paused to look this up, where they had given gold stars to the women of the WASP Corps. I think like their oldest member right now is like 92 and still alive. So I mean, we recognize their value. We have known this. He's also pulling down, and again, we spoke of this last episode, the Defense Advisory Committee on Women in the Services. That was created back in 1951. Let me read here. It provided advice on recruitment, retention, employment, integration, well-being, and treatment of women in the military. Hegseth has pulled that down. Pulled it down in September because it focused on advancing a divisive feminist agenda that hurts combat readiness. I'm not even sure how you would potentially prove that. That is just the most broad and foolish statement I have heard in forever. He clearly does not respect women. He clearly does not respect our female troops, and he clearly does not respect our troops on the whole. He also, there was a legal act that Trump put in 2017 in his first term called the Women, Peace, and Security Act. And the whole point of that one was to bring women into national security positions. Hegseth canceled, he didn't cancel it. It's a law, so he couldn't end it. But he has basically said he's only going to comply with the bare minimum to show that he is complying with that law. But he called that one yet another woke, divisive, social justice Biden initiative that overburdens our commanders and troops, distracting from our core task, war fighting. he has a really confusing hard-on for that whole war fighting thing. He says that a lot. For a guy who was not trusted to lead troops in combat, he spends a lot of time focused on our lethality and our war fighting. But one way or the other, that was the Women's Peace and Security Act was came from Trump in 2017, and he's trying to spin it like, number one, it's a bad thing, and number two, that Biden started it.
Mhm.
There are at least
Well,
12 other
I
committees like that he has
yeah,
shot down, or that
see,
they have proposed to take down.
see, I don't think Trump cares very much.
No.
I don't think he's really a Christian nationalist or a white supremacist exactly. I mean, he is sort of, but he's really just an authoritarian who's looking to get attention for himself. And he's hooked up with people like Hegseth and J.D. Vance and these folks who they are white supremacists. They are male chauvinists. They really don't like minority folks, except in their proper place,
Mm.
Which is in the case of transgender people is out of the military. If in the case of Black folks, it's keeping your mouth shut and doing what you're told, which is better than slavery. You'll have to admit it's a step up.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the same thing.
It's the same thing. Oh, I forgot that. I was just hoping to find some kind of a,
Silver lining there.
silver lining in the, yeah.
And yeah, yes, knowing your place. He has also said, like, in the process of trying to push women out, he's changed the standards of investigation. Like, we already know that like 98% of, like, in the general public, like 98% of allegations of sexual assault and harassment, and the 98% is only the ones that are actually put forward. We obviously cannot know how many assaults and harassments are just never reported. But we know that 98% of the ones that are reported basically end in a giant null. You may go all the way through the court process, and then the perpetrator walks away. But Hegseth is now trying to make that even worse. He's put in basically a statement that there will be no more, and I think this was in the September speech. No more frivolous complaints, no more anonymous complaints, no more repeat complaints, no more smearing reputations, no more frivolous complaints. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, and no more smearing reputations. With the idea that all investigations that are found to, if they have to decide within a week if the complaint is founded, and then they have to close the investigation within 30 days.
I mean, why doesn't he just say there will be no complaints again? Let's just go back to, it's really inconvenient to stop, the men from raping the women. It's a lot of work to do that. And if you're a real man, you should, you should be out of raping, Yeah. It's like raping and pillaging and burning. That's what we do. I guess, I don't know. That's what he wants the military to be good at. But the problem is, and everything you're saying, he's breaking the promises that our government has made to the people that do fight our wars and support the people. And there's so many people that support the people who are actually fighting. All of them are fighting the wars. We made promises to them.
Yes.
We said, you live in a democracy where there's equal opportunity. We're in fact, in the military, many times has been in the forefront of promoting equal opportunity, only to back off on it again, only to have the political interference stop it, which, like, transgender people were purposely allowed to serve. Now they're not. They weren't, then they were, now they're not. It's the back and forth and back. We wanted black troops in World War II. We reluctantly gave them GI benefits afterwards. And then we made sure they couldn't use them in white colleges. We gave them home loan capability and made sure we redlined their neighborhood so they couldn't get a VA loan and live in the community they wanted to live in, because the culture made sure of that. So we give with one hand, take back with the other, Seems to be a kind of a theme in American culture.
Yeah, well, and even when we're not necessarily taking back, it's that idea of incremental gains. We'll be okay with it because things are better than they were yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Rather than just simply saying, what, this is a blanket issue and there is a blanket solution. If you are a human being, you will have exactly the same rights as anyone else that we recognize as a human being. There is no reason to have a set of rules or laws for women and a set of rules or laws for men and another set for Muslims and another set for Christians and another set based on who you sleep with. Everyone's position should be the same before the law.
But as soon as we do that, we have created democracy. We've created liberal democracy, and we've undermined authoritarianism. And authoritarians cannot tolerate that, whether they're authoritarians of religion or they're just narcissistic authoritarians, who are just, want the whole world to pay attention to them every night on the internet or TV. It's like they can't tolerate that kind of equality, that kind of equal opportunity. It's just, but we're coming now. I think I'm kind of encouraged a little bit because it seems like some Americans are beginning to see this a little bit. They're saying, what kind of country do I want to have? Do I want, I thought I don't know if they thought the good fairy was bringing SNAP benefits or Medicaid or Medicare or VA benefits. I don't know who they think are bringing, but maybe they can see that actually a federal government is doing that and was doing that. We're going to see how much of that gets lost, but maybe we're waking up, because Americans are going to have to choose between authoritarian nationalism, either whether it's Christian or whoever is doing it, whether it's fascism. Fascism doesn't do well with equality of opportunity. And it needs somebody to blame, So it's like, we're going to choose that. And we are choosing. I'm hoping there's a little waking up going on, because although there must have been some amnesia, everybody watched all this go on with Trump #1. And then somehow 49% of the electorate chose it again. I'm going, okay, how long does it take to learn? It's, maybe it takes millennia. Like the Europeans fought 1,000 years of wars over authoritarianism and the invading each other's countries and suppressing minorities. Religious groups fought with each other. They can, and it seemed like, and I was going to say, one of my point was going to be, well, they finally woke up. But
well, and we woke up too. We came from that, but
yeah.
we have stepped through the last 40 to 50, I'd say 40 years. It was in the 60s and 70s. At some point, people realized that you cannot have an educated populace. They will resist things that make them money. They will resist having a state religion. They will resist having groups put in their place. They will constantly move people forward if you give them knowledge. And and we're seeing that now. We're moving whole groups out of being considered to be professionals. We've been reducing basic civic education since I was in school. I think my graduating class may have been among the last coming into the 89, 90, 91, may have been the last group of kids that saw a real civics class. The civics classes I took in college were an absolute fucking joke. Um, we are not. I'm trying to remember. Somebody was telling me that they had a student who didn't understand. Like in the last couple of years, one of my college professor friends was saying they had a student who didn't understand exactly what the Revolutionary War was. Like just the if you don't understand the basis of our country, you definitely do not understand the Civil War and women's suffrage and our functions in World War I and II, and what we called defending democracy around the world going into the 70s and 80s. um,
Well, that's the main division between MAGA and us. I don't know what we are. Who are we? Are we elites? Mitch, are you an elite? I'm just wondering. An educated elite is education. So, because it appears as if this administration equals education equals somehow elitism. It equals oppression of the MAGA folks. But if we're telling the truth about history, it educates us about what it is we want to have in our country now. Do we
yeah,
really want to have another civil war? Do we really want to have a religion running our country? Do we want to allow authoritarians to be president? Really? Is that because we can look back and we can see what's happened? We made lots of mistakes as a country. The history of America is just full of lots of mistakes and also lots of great decisions. It was
right, and there's
in the
nothing wrong
history of
with making mistakes. It's making the same mistake again and again and again. you know
yes.
the fact that it's only taken 20 years to talk people out of understanding the function of vaccines, um, that 40 plus 50, 40, 60, 70 years of moving toward equity has just been cast aside in 12 years. It's
You know what?
difficult to understand how people don't understand that the rights they're taking away from other people are rights that will eventually be taken away from them.
And if
Um,
you don't study history, maybe you don't know that. And if you don't just know your own country's history, it's world history, but it's American history. It's civics. It's all of that, which you don't have to be super educated to just know about. Just basic facts. It's yet I guess I am hopeful. I'm thinking people there's also a quality of American culture where we allow ourselves to be suckers. There's a quality of American culture where we like snake oil salesmen. We like people that are offering magic solutions to things that will never work. And it seems like many of the people that got that really voted for this administration, we're looking for a magic solution to
a problem that doesn't
inflation.
exist. They're looking for magic solutions to problems that don't exist. They're
Talk about
unhappy
that.
about something, and it's a problem for them. It's not a problem for us as a country, and they're getting that. They're getting those solutions. We are harming other Americans, and they are fortunately catching the backlash of that. They're starting to see the damage to their neighbors, to their communities, from the things that they said they wanted, and now they can't stop it from happening. None of us seem to be able to stop it from happening.
Are you talking about inflation?
Yeah,
And
that's on the list.
okay, get more list. What's on the list?
Okay, so immigration issues,
Immigration.
women's health issues, as you said, the economy, basic safety, health issues on the whole because of vaccines. It's a really long list. We've gotten to a point now where we can't even rely on the basics of our legal system. Because we have a lot of, they talked when I was coming up, we talked about activist judges, activist Supreme Court making decisions that go directly against, whatever else was already in place, because, these liberals just want to be touchy feely and help everybody instead of, keeping the door sealed tight, and people on the, people who don't belong on this side have to stay on that side. And now we're seeing that coming back the other way, to the point that it's like, and the thing that confuses me is I don't understand how these judges who support Trump don't understand that they are putting themselves out of a job. He will very quickly no longer need courts or judges. He just
Well,
needs
he's
stormtroopers to
surprised.
enforce the statements.
One thing that Trump is really good at, he's excellent at snake oil. He's great at going, this is what I'm going to give you, and get people believing. Like, he wanted to tighten up immigration,
Mm-hmm.
which was that was the will of the American people. A lot of the American people. Biden was doing some of that, but he did a lot more. So that was part of his sales pitch. And he was going to help, with the economy. I don't think people expected all the rest that he really wanted to do. He really wanted to stop equality in America. And to do that, and he of course picked someone to do that in the military. He really wanted to allow inequality again to blossom. And so we have rampant disparity between incomes now.
Right. As was pointed out by our guests, by our viewers, Project 2025, Trump doesn't even care enough to set up his own agenda. He was voted in, and he has handed the government over to a variety of third parties who are doing everything in their power to dismantle everything they individually don't like about the country. We've handed our environmental health over to industrial lobbyists. We've handed our medical health over to basic deniers of everything that says any human being who is not me deserves good health. We've handed the economy over to people who just need really rich people to be the only people with money, as best as I can figure this, because, if the situation we're moving toward now is clearly that everyone else is supposed to be a serf or a slave, and all the money is supposed to be at the top.
Yeah.
We're immediately going to drop back down to this is my kingdom. I am the kingdom of Montana, and I have all the money, and anybody who wants to eat will serve my purposes. It's
so that all makes sense. It's like, that's basic value for Trump. What is good for him, what is good for wealthy people, that's what works for him. In fact, I don't think he probably cares much about wealthy people either. I think he cares about himself.
Yes.
Get him and his family, get them rich. He's given up on heaven, by the way.
Has he given up on it?
Yeah, I don't think he thinks he's going there. I think he gets promised so he's hooked up with the Christian nationalists, and they're trying to reassure him, you're our guy. You may be completely immoral, and you may be doing all this sexual stuff with me. You may have done all of this, but if you turn to Christianity in this particular way, you'll go to heaven. I don't know. He sounds like an old ancient king. He's an old ancient, debauched king. Who's busy murdering the peasants, but some crazy priest comes and says to him that he's going to go to heaven. It's going to be all right. And he knows he's not. He knows he's just a reprobate. But But in the meantime, the way it's always been, if you're a minority, you're fucked. Let's face it. Be a good gay guy and just shut up and take your whipping. Black folks get back to slavery and be good slaves. Women back in the kitchen with aprons and pregnant, and get more pregnant pretty soon because it's all of this. And the military is just a great focus of this kind of approach to things. And
right,
the king just wants his soldiers to give obedience, do what they're told, and he will support he will support fragile male egos, fragile white people's fears. He will do that for you. But so far, I guess what I was expecting, Mitch, is maybe this outpouring of happiness if this is the way America really is, why aren't people just delighted with all this crap? Because I don't think that's the nature. I don't believe, I'll answer my own rhetorical. I don't believe that's what the majority of American people want. I think actually the majority of people are woke. They want equity and inclusion. They don't want to be screwed financially by globalization. They would like immigration to actually have a legal system that works, where you apply to come in. And and we have laws that make it an orderly process. We make it possible. They would like an economy that's low inflation. They'd like everyone to have a job, everyone to have a house and a car. They want one, why? I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to speak for the majority of Americans today. Can I do that? I don't know. But I think so.
Go for it.
What, say again?
Yeah, it feels good to me. Do it. Just lead the masses to the light, brother.
Come to the light. Come back to DEI.
Okay, so sort of on that front, had you been able to dig into the concept of what it is we're actually, because we just sort of went through a broad conversation about what we're taking away from the citizenry. Had you been able to look at what we're taking away from our troops?
Well, one of the things I really looked into, because I've been hearing it for years, is the suicide rate among veterans. Okay, we send men and women into harm's way. They get physically injured. We've covered that in many broadcasts now. They get psychologically injured. We've covered that some also. And we have like 1 out of 4, I guess they're combat veterans, are getting traumatic brain injuries. All of that's coming out. So, but we roughly have 6,000 veteran suicides a year now, 6,000. And we're having many more successful suicides than we are combat deaths in the last many years. I don't know about World War II and that sort of thing, but at least in the last several decades. Many more vets are just killing themselves rather than being killed in combat. And we wonder, why is the suicide rate so high? And it is actually was somewhat coming down as the VA poured massive amounts of money into mental health help for the VA. Now, when I go to the VA, every time I call that number, I get said, if you are suicidal, if you are having problems, press 1 or something. The whole system now is focused towards trying to prevent suicide and trying to get enough counselors, enough guys connected, and that sort of thing. Trump wants to cut that. So we've got 17,000. First, it was 17,000 were cut. They're trying to cut 30,000 VA employees by the end of the year, and many more after that, I'm sure. So we're trying to cut the help that these folks need, and they need desperately. And it's kind of, there's a sort of a history of this, of America, of breaking promises to their soldiers. If you watch the NPR, which is quite an eye-opening experience, really about what we've been talking about, is the NPR Revolutionary War series that just came out from Ken Burns and 2 other directors, producer folks. And you watch all during the Revolutionary War, veterans were fighting, and they were either not getting paid at all, or they were given paper money that was worthless, or they were giving IOUs, promissory notes, that they then sold in order to get enough money to eat. Sell them at a discount, these promissory notes from they didn't have enough clothes to wear. They didn't have adequate shelter. Many times they were barefoot, and somehow they fought for us. And there's it's a bit of a metaphor for the, or first example for how it's gone. We promise our veterans a lot, but we frequently back, because it's expensive. War is expensive, and putting people in that situation is expensive, and we frequently back off on our promises to them. Now, eventually, Congress did vote pensions for the Revolutionary War veterans, and they did pay some of their salaries. But sometimes these people were in their 70s and 80s before they saw anything. Here in Ventura, I just read this one, 7 of 12 mental health workers have left the local clinic. Like what we have now, it's really cool. The VA created local clinics, so you don't have to go to this, maybe travel an hour to go to a VA hospital. You very frequently have a clinic in your community. We have one here in Placentia. The one in Ventura has lost most of its mental health workers. I'm not sure if they were fired, let go, or just harassed into leaving. But this is what this administration does with the VA. There's 100-day waits for mental health services. Okay, being a psychologist, or at least I was one, just have somebody that's actively suicidal and have them wait 100 days to get help. That's a good way to put them in a box somewhere, Yeah. But actually, as I was saying, the suicide rate was declining from 2020, but I suspect it's going to start going up again. So something else I mentioned is, the LGBTQ people were allowed to serve openly from 2011. Mm-hmm. Or no, that ended. Don't ask, don't tell. 2016, Obama allowed transgendered people to serve until 2019, I think it was, and then Trump stopped it again. So we made a promise to LGBTQ people, that they were going to serve openly. Beep. No, we changed it, So Black vets were finally included in the GI Bill. In World War II, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt created the GI Bill to include Black and white Americans. The only problem was, we've kind of mentioned this a little bit, and then what it is, when you get out of the military and you go to college, which was under the GI Bill, Black and white Americans could do that. It's just Black Americans couldn't go to a prestigious white college because of segregation, because of various kinds of problems. And I also mentioned GI Bills. GI Bill, same problem. They weren't allowed to use it. So if you don't get a college education, you don't get to own a home, you're left out of all the economic prosperity of leaving World War II, unless you're left to a second-class citizenship where your ownership of property, your employment is drastically limited. So we made a promise to all our Black veterans, World War II, and then our local culture, usually states and local cultures, usually very much in the South, but definitely in my dear liberal state of California, did the same stuff to Black veterans. It goes on and on. Of the 300,000 women who were discharged during World War II, most of them were not even told about the GI Bill. They just were kind of assumed to become invisible then. They didn't need to go to college, because where did they need to go? Well, with Christian nationalism, with white supremacy, they go back in the kitchen and do what they're told, you know. So there's just thousands of examples. I want to say something positive again, though. It's like America keeps trying to do the right thing. And
Yes.
Frequently they do a half-assed job of it, but they try to. And under Biden, to me, President Biden did many things that were wonderful to increase equality and inclusion. Trying, and now we have the backlash. And there's always the backlash. I keep hearing there's always going to be the backlash. And there is, and there was a tremendous backlash against what Biden did. Thinking that it was about inflation and thinking it was about immigration. And yet the backlash is against so many loyal, patriotic Americans of various minority groups and sexual orientations. And wake up, America. I hope you wake up. If you disagree with that, please do talk about that in our comments. Call in. Tell us how wrong we are, because we practice everybody's opinions being welcome here, and everyone's are. I mean, I don't agree with them, maybe, doesn't matter. Because you're in America, you get to speak up and say them, you know. I want to thank Mitch today for doing all that research and presenting it to us. And maybe America will wake up. I'm looking forward to it. Seems like we wake up and then we go to sleep again, you know. Thanks, man.
Thank you very much, Doctor. See you next 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
All the way up. Watch Love and Country, the movie about two gay men in the military falling in love. Read the book, my book, Love and Country. It's on Amazon. You can watch the movie free. You don't have to pay all that money for the book. Watch it free on Tubi, or you can buy it if you want to support us. You can buy the book many different places too. It's electronically, it's an ebook, and it's also in paper. And if you'd like a signed copy, contact me through the channel here, and I'll send you one. I don't know how much it'll be. It's 15, 20 bucks or something by the time it gets to you. Thanks for listening.
Bye, everybody.